Thank you so much for joining us today for our first kind of collaborative virtual event that we've run. So this is a little bit different than the other kind of virtual events that we've been running over the past 2 months, where it's myself or people on the beehiiv team or guests coming and joining and us presenting a deck and getting their advice. This is going to be very different, completely different format, flipped on its head. We have Nathan here who runs the feed media. I'm going to let him give a chance to give a full introduction, but he's actually going to be running 90% of this. I don't even know if I'm going to be talking at all. I'm going to leave it up to him to invite feedback if he wants, but this is really his show today. He's incredibly talented as it comes to media buying, specifically for newsletters. I'm sure he's got talents outside of newsletters as well, but he actually runs the media buying for the Creator Spotlight publication. And so we work with him to do that. He's been doing a great job coming up with different creative, optimizing those campaigns, and also works with a bunch of other newsletters. I'll let him share those big names, but been doing a great job. And so when we wanted to run a webinar specifically going deep into how you can scale ads on Meta, Instagram, Facebook, and potentially any of the other properties Nathan was obviously one of the top choice, or one of the top choices from our audience or from our network of friends that we work with. And super proud to have him here. Thank you for joining us today. We got 80 people, up to 81. Hopefully we'll see that tick up a little bit higher. Anybody who experienced a little bit of a miscommunication in terms of noon versus 1 o'clock, time zones are hard. We had daylight savings time. I didn't even know that daylight savings time happened last weekend until Monday when somebody mentioned it. For some reason, I completely missed it this year. Usually I'm on top of it. But anyway, some of the communication said starting at 1. Most of them said starting at noon. So if you were a little bit confused, we extend our deepest apologies, and we have that accounted for now. But without further ado, I'm going to toss it to Nathan and let him get started, introduce himself, and run the show.
Awesome. Super, super excited. My other talent, to your point, is making espresso martinis. Those are the only things I can do. It's not paid ads. Excited to be with you guys. So I'll talk a little bit about us in a second, but really what I want to do over roughly the next 45 minutes is what's here in front of you. Talk about profitably scaling newsletter ads to $100,000 a month. There are relatively few newsletters that are doing $100,000 a month in revenue. There's even fewer that are spending $100,000 a month on ads. And we're very fortunate to work with a lot of the folks on beehiiv who do that, who've gotten to that scale. And so this is really about transferring everything I possibly have learned about creative and paid media for newsletters into your brain in the next 40 minutes. So that's the promise to you guys at the end of this. All right, look, we do 2 things. We grow newsletters and we convert those readers into revenue. So really, that looks like 3 things. We use meta ads to grow newsletters. We've added over 2 million subscribers to newsletters. We help with sponsorships. We've done about 3 million in sponsor sales in the last 7 months. And then we just kicked off an initiative with a couple of newsletter operators where, let's say you've got a product or a service that sits behind your newsletter. We do all the marketing in order to turn readers into customers. And so that looks like working with a bunch of these logos here, the Neuron, the Rundown. We work with Tyler's newsletter, Jesse Pujji, Arnold Schwarzenegger, all these awesome folks. And what I want to talk to you guys about is everything we've learned on these 3 things that you see. I first want to talk about the biggest channels for newsletter growth. So this is to help save you time, because there's actually relatively few channels that newsletters who get to 7 figures, that get to 8 figures, end up investing most of their time in. So those are the ones that you should be prioritizing. I want to talk about how the largest paid channel, which foreshadowing is it's going to be Meta, has changed over the last 2 or 3 years, and what that means like for what you basically need to do differently in a paid ads program. And then I want to walk you through end to end everything that you need to know for research to copywriting to design to launching to do ads that could scale you to a 7-figure newsletter. That's the goal over the next 40 minutes. Okay, why even have a strong creative program? I actually just want to really quickly talk about like the mechanics of a newsletter and share some benchmarks. The whole reason why you want to have strong creative is so that you drive, number one, quality readership, right? With those kinds of metrics at as low a cost per lead as possible. Most people get addicted to number 2. They get addicted to the cost per lead. They don't spend enough time thinking about the quality readership, measuring that versus what they're spending on paid ads. So that's really important. We're going to talk a little bit about that. The purpose of those things is to make sure that you can monetize, and I'm just using ad monetization as an example, but monetize best in class. Whether you're a B2C newsletter, there's some CPM data there. Whether you're a B2B newsletter, which would be like AI or technology or sales. And the whole goal of these 3 things is to get you to number 4, being able to decrease your payback period on a subscriber. The issue that most media companies, a lot of newsletter companies run into is not that they're unprofitable on readers. It's how fast do they become profitable on readers? Waiting 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months, right, to break even on a reader and then start moving into profit positive territory, you will grow significantly slower than somebody who is able to do that in 2 and 3 months. So this is about having a larger newsletter, right? But having a larger newsletter faster. That is the goal of a really good creative program. Okay. There are 3 channels that we found that are responsible for 80% of the large newsletters that are growing really fast. And they're these channels. So we've got SEO, organic social, paid ads, not on Twitter, not on TikTok, but on Meta. So on the very left-hand side, that's a lot of the more old school web-first publishers and media companies. Red Ventures, which has The Points Guy, has Bankrate, Dotdash Meredith, which is Food and Wine, People Magazine. And a lot of those folks actually want newsletters. They're trying to figure out the paid ads part because they're getting hit by Google AI reviews and all these things that are doing some harm to SEO traffic, right? They don't actually own their audience. They're dependent on Google for traffic. In the middle category, this is also a good way to gain subscribers. If you look at like The Hustle, so Sam Parr, right? Several 100,000 subscribers for The Hustle came from him just going viral on Reddit. My buddy Rowan from The Rundown got to a 7-figure newsletter, just becoming one of the largest creators talking about AI on Twitter. But what happens over time is that growth starts to plateau. And so eventually, everybody starts moving to the far right-hand side. And whether you look at 1440, whether you look at The Rundown, the Superhuman, most of that spend tends to be allocated into Meta. It is the most scalable channel. Okay, so that's where I recommend over time that most people focus. That's the competency that you should be building. What's different about Meta? What's changed? So Meta ads have changed dramatically over the last 2 or 3 years. The way that things used to be is that people were, let's make it sure. Yeah, people were very focused, and Meta was very focused on manual targeting. So you go into Meta, it was very important that you understood how their platform worked. And you'd basically go to Meta and you say, hey, I'm running a fitness newsletter or a fitness e-commerce company. I want to target these interests: fitness, cooking, travel. I want this age. I want this location. And then Meta would find people like that. It would serve your ad to them based on the identity graph, all this data it has on you. And that's how you would do paid marketing. Over time, Meta's ML models, Meta's AI models have gotten a lot better at understanding the context of what is in your ad. Those are the words that are spoken. Those are the images. And actually taking all of the targeting off of your hands. Now the creative does the targeting. And there's an implicit incentive there for Meta to do that, right? If you have to come in, you have to learn how the Meta ad platform works. That's not good for them, right? The time between you learning Meta and spending $1 on Meta gets larger, right? So they as a company are incentivized to move to the right-hand side. They've already moved there, but you're going to keep moving there. And so it's very important that you operate in that ecosystem, in that world. And so the takeaway is this. From a targeting perspective, do not try to outsmart Meta. You do not want to be this is the midwit meme. You do not want to be the guy in the middle, right? We got to use hand-selected ad placements and targeting, and we got to stack interest groups and demos. You want to be on the left or the right-hand side. Let Facebook do the targeting. Spend all of your time focused on the research and creating really amazing creative. That's the goal. That's the goal. So here it is. Your success on Meta determined by your ability to know creative research in copywriting. That's what we're going to talk about today. I want to start with research, but we'll walk through all 4 of these categories, and we'll show you some of the best practices that either we use ourselves or that we've seen other newsletter programs use in their marketing. So the goal of creative research. We'll walk through like the 5 sources that I like the most for creative research. But just overall, like the goal of the research part of your work is to do 2 things. Number 1 is like fast track your account with what's already working and other ad accounts. Look at other newsletters. Look at other companies that solve the same issue that your newsletter does. Write out their hooks. Copy the same structure, right? This is something that almost like a blueprint, or like you were going to, if I asked you to learn piano, I would not ask you to write a song immediately. I would say, go copy a song, go copy the chords that you really like. Learn that first. That's the first goal. And that is just to get you started. That's to help you move fast. The second goal is to, and this is where the best marketers end up going, you actually have to understand what your customer, what your reader wants in order to do creative that works in the future, that will work in a way that is hyper-specific to them and get you the best cost per lead, the best purchasers, the best quality on the other side of that cost per lead that you can possibly have. We're going to talk more about that. Okay, we're going to do 5 things that I like to do in the process of researching creative. This first one will use an example from the beehiiv CEO, Tyler's newsletter, Big Desk Energy. One of the things that I love to do is to aggregate as much reader feedback as we can, as many data points, and get ChatGPT, because that often can be a lot of data, to summarize it and give us insights that we can then turn into advertisements. Those are things, and beehiiv makes this quite easy in your post analytics dashboard, all different parts of the analytics UI. What are your highest open rate subject lines? What comments are you getting? If you're running surveys, which responses are you getting there, either in the onboarding flow or surveys that you're sending afterwards? What kind of replies are you getting? What are your highest click-through rate links? I'll give you a quick example. Before we do this audience deep dive with every team that we work with. And so for Arnold Schwarzenegger's team, one of their best performing links is about sleep. 8 Sleep actually is one of their sponsor partners, and it has tremendous performance for them. So already going into that conversation, we know that sleep quality, longevity, energy, right? Those things are going to be very important to the type of person who is not just reading the newsletter, but doing the thing that you actually want them to do if you're ad monetized, which is clicking sponsorship links, actually finding value out of the things that you're recommending. And so you need to work backwards and create ad concepts around that type of ideal customer profile, ICP. So for Tyler's newsletter, one of the things we did was download, he gets a ton of responses, both email replies and survey replies to his newsletter all the time. And so we use a prompt like this, using the feedback I gave you, give me newsletter benefits, pain points, features. And ChatGPT does a remarkably good job, as does Claude and other tools, of feeding back to us what the customers are telling us. And we specifically ask it to give us quotes from these things so that we have an understanding of the reader's voice, how they think about this, not how we think about this. So if you look at Tyler's newsletter, people love transparency. And so these are real quotes from readers, right? Building in public with full transparency. I love these strategies. I love real founder talk, not just the glamorous stuff. And this is all true. Like, I'm a founder. This is why I read Tyler's newsletter, right? But plenty of people create amazing companies, but end up being quite formal, right? And cards close to their chest. Tyler's the opposite of that, right? That's why founders like his newsletter. And we need to be talking about that in the ads. Okay. Let's keep going. The second place we really love is Reddit. Oh my gosh, I love Reddit. Reddit communities will tell you exactly the problems that your readers want solved. And so there's a really amazing website. If you go into Google and just type map of Reddit, it'll come up. It's like a GitHub link. And so it's a little confusing at first, but you'll basically end up on that map. And this shows you can plug in a subreddit that you're interested in, and it will show you the subreddits that have the most similar people, where the most people spend their time. So small business has sales, it has entrepreneur, right? There's a couple other things that's connected to here. And that helps us understand all the field of where we need to go and explore what people are talking about. So we go into those. We'll sort for top posts and comments. So this is, if we were doing this for Tyler's newsletter, you can see in the last year, some of the top things are scaling company to a certain size, a $50,000 mistake that almost killed your startup, an AMA, which by the way is fantastic because then we're going to get the most interesting, the most popular questions people have about entrepreneurship. All of this is information that can either, quite literally, some of these could be hooks in your ads, but all of them should inform how you're doing your copywriting. How do we know this? Here's an ad for the Neuron. So they're an AI newsletter by these two guys, Pete and Noah, about 450,000 subscribers. And this single ad, not a campaign, not a group of ads, not a test, one ad drove 25,000 subscribers for them. And it was about this dream outcome, which is basically something that we use in copywriting. That's what's the thing you want? Generally, it's something that raises your status. It's something that makes you look better. It's right. It's some outcome that's good for you. And there's some problem that gets in the way of that. And that's what we're writing about. So for this particular ad, and we're gonna build this ad from scratch, by the way, through the rest of this presentation. The dream outcome was performing better at work. And the problem was, hey, somebody who's using AI might get a bonus or a promotion over me. They may do better than I will at work. And so we had this winning hook, which was if you're not delegating research and properly to AI at work, you're going to be outperformed by the guy who does. Where did we get this idea? From this thread. This viral Reddit thread told us this idea would work. Number one, dream outcome. I see if you can just follow this for the one to the text and then the one to the dream outcome. This person's talking about accelerating their career because of AI. Number two, the problem. They're worried AI is going to take their job, or maybe somebody using AI is going to take their job. And then number three, there's another problem there. They're worried they'll get left behind by AI. And so we're just taking the things that people are organically telling us and saying, great, we know that works organically. We bet there is a high chance, not a guaranteed chance, but a high chance that will work in performance marketing. The next place that I like to look at are competitor ads. There's an app called Foreplay. It's a marketing tool. It's a marketing SaaS analytics tool that will basically let you spy on other ads. And it's even better than the Facebook ad library because you can actually see how long an ad has been running and ads that have been turned off that have run for a very long time. So even if they're hidden or they're not active on Facebook, you can see stuff that's performed really well in the past. So a lot of times we'll do this with other newsletters. We'll look at e-commerce players that we think have really amazing marketing teams like Huel or Rise, and we'll use this to inform the structures of our hooks. We'll literally write them down. We have an entire hook library that's from high-performing e-commerce ads because we know those types of hooks will translate well to other industries like newsletters or mobile apps. And so, for example, like this is the actual little list of newsletters that we have marketers monitor week to week so that we know what's performing. And we'll send you this, by the way. If anybody who's here at the end, you'll get this deck. At the end, if you stay, we'll send that out. Cool. Okay, next place is organic content. So yeah, it's kind of like Reddit, but I think more of organic video content. So this is primarily for us Instagram. Sometimes it's TikTok. A lot of times it's Instagram. So this is an example from beehiiv's newsletter, Creator Spotlight. There's a woman, Amy Porterfield, who's doing $10 million a year teaching you how to launch a digital course, how to build an email list. And so this is fairly relevant, right? The audience she's attracting are people who are interested in developing an audience. People are interested in potentially developing an audience and actually owning that audience with email versus having that audience trapped on Twitter, Instagram, or somewhere else where it could technically be taken away from you or your reach could be decreased. And so just looking at the most viral videos that she's done gives us ideas for ads. It gives us ideas for hooks in any of our ads. So we lead on stuff like this a lot as well. And then this last category is audience discussion. So I always recommend talking with whoever's closest to actually writing and producing the content. Writers, founders of newsletters, they just have this kind of gut sense that's almost of what the audience wants. That's almost kind of difficult to recreate with data alone. And so you can still do this even though you're not an agency. Like for us, that means like we do these 60-minute deep dives. So this is us with Arnold's chief of staff, just writing through all the problems, all the benefits that their newsletter, that their mobile app solves. And we think about the three things on the right-hand side, the dream outcomes, the first, second order problems people are having, and what are the things the newsletter does to actually solve those things. But this is the same type of conversation that you should be having amongst your team. You should do this with your team. Cool. So I want to take this research process now and actually show you how that translates into copywriting. So that ad that we looked at, the one that worked really well from the neuron, we're going to rewrite that ad. I'm going to show you all the principles. We're going to unpack every single part of how we got from kind of zero, just an idea that came from Reddit, to an ad that ended up, for them, driving 25,000 subscribers from just a single ad placement. So there are two things that we're thinking about when we're moving from research to then turning that into hooks and body copy that ends up becoming an ad. The first are like dream outcomes or desires, problems that get in the way of those things. And then benefits are features. So a dream outcome would be like, if you're Arnold, would be like losing weight or building muscle. But you can get a little bit more emotional, more feel with that, right? Like you want to look better. You want to be seen as somebody who's healthy or more beautiful or more fit, right? Those are nice dream outcomes to land on. And then you start unpacking the problems for those. So there's any number of problems in fitness, right? It's, I don't have time to work out. I don't know how to get started. I don't know anybody else who's working out. Oh, I got to eat healthier. Now I got to cook more food that's healthy. That's going to take more time away from me and my family. Oh, I need to cook more food that's healthy, but I have a family and I need to cook stuff for me that also works for them, right? There's all these problems that sit underneath what is really just one outcome, which is lose weight. And so you already are thinking about this when you're doing your research. Now you just choose. You pick one outcome, you pick one problem, and you write an ad that is hyper-specific to that. The goal of this is to write an ad that doesn't try to speak to everybody in your newsletter, because when you speak to everybody, you don't really speak very effectively to anybody at all, right? So you're trying to write hyper-specifically. So we're going to walk through that now, but I just want to take you very quickly over to market awareness. Look, this is less important than the left-hand side. It's still important, right? But if you're going to pick one thing to actually bring to your ad program, it would be the thing we just talked about. I still want to walk through this though. Most ads that we see are like problem or solution aware. This is a good way or a good framework for how you frame your advertisements in the copy. So for instance, somebody who's unaware, that's usually somebody who like has a symptom, but they don't know that they have a problem. So your ad is basically the doctor going, hey, like you have this symptom. This is why. This is the problem that you have. And then the ad walks through actually solving that problem with your product. That is really different from somebody who's moved all the way down the funnel. So 1 is the very top of the funnel, 5 is the very bottom. Somebody who is fully aware, number 5, who's sold on your product. They know your newsletter, or they know, say, your beehiiv. They know beehiiv already. They're just looking for a reason to convert right now. That might be a discount, right? That might be a bonus, right? And so you need to think about what type of ad you're doing in this hierarchy. Now, I'll walk through some examples to make that more real, but I just want to set this framework up first. I want to start with the left-hand side, with that dream outcome and the problems. And this is the ad again, the one that was doing really well. For us, that dream outcome was, I want to perform better at work. The problem was, hey, somebody using AI will get a bonus or promotion over me. There are other problems that get in the way of that same dream outcome. So we have to think about those problems too. And these are actual real ads we've run that have done well that came from the exact exercise that I'm telling you of mapping problems to dream outcomes. So let's walk through a couple of them. The one on the far left-hand side is a more severe version of the one that we were just talking about. Hey, I'm worried AI will take over my job completely. I will feel irrelevant. The things that I do today will be taken over by AI. This ad doesn't work as well anymore, but back in early 2023, when people were first figuring this whole AI thing out, this was a really great hook to use. And so these things actually change over time. It's why you need to be pivoting your ad strategy over time. You can't just launch ads and suddenly they're evergreen for the rest of time. These other two, I think, are a really good example, which will help show you why nuance and distinction can be very important in your copywriting. Here we have a problem on the third from the left, which is I don't feel important in my job, stuck doing tasks like Excel and PowerPoint. And so the ad we wrote for that was about delegating, getting out of those things. So the top employees act like CEOs. They think about which things are right to do. They delegate to others on how to do them. You can delegate PowerPoint and research to AI, read the neuron. If we look at the ad to the right of that, this one, so I'm tired of the 40-hour work week. I wish I had more flexibility. So this is somebody who cares. They want to perform better at work, but it's not because they want to feel more meaning in their work. It's not because they want to be promoted. They have things outside of work that are more important to them, hobbies, family, whatever it is. And so they're looking to take a 40-hour work week and make it less for them effectively using AI tools. And so the solution we talk about in the ad is the same as the ad to the left of that. It's still delegating things like notes, PowerPoints, Excel to AI. Same solution, right? But the way you package that solution, the problem it solves is spoken about differently because we're talking to a different person. And so this is the level of nuance of articulation you need to get to when your creative is a thing doing the target. You have to think of these different types of people who want different types of things. And then the goal is you start doing even more ads that are underneath these, right? You keep going. And this is like a creative iteration cycle. This is like a performance marketing program. Okay. Take a sip of water. I want to talk about this whole, what's this problem solution awareness thing? Like, how do I even think about that? Just so you know, this is true of newsletters. This is true of any market. Typically, most ads fall into problem or solution aware. They're the easiest ones to write, but like the relationship you should be thinking of, if I was going to give you one framework, is unaware audiences are much larger, right? There's more people, but they're harder to sell to because you have to bring them from, oh, I've got a problem, to now, like, how do I solve my problem? What's the solution? What's your product? Why do I act on your product now? Right? You have to take them all the way down the funnel. And at the very other end, there are people who are fully aware of your newsletter, people who are fully aware of beehiiv, right? Name your product. It's just a smaller group of people, right? So they're easier to sell to, but it's just not very scalable. And so most ads, here are the ads that I just showed you, sit in this problem or solution aware category. So we're also lightly thinking about where we're sitting and like the awareness levels as we're writing these ads. As you're trying to learn this, again, I would use like Claude or ChatGPT to basically be your own teachers. All the time when I'm training like a new growth marketer, we'll help people think about these awareness levels and we'll ask them to write a script and we'll ask them to write something that's problem or solution aware. And ChatGPT can do a good job of identifying like what you're trying to do and given a script. Is this problem aware? Is it solution aware? Or let's say like, I want to do an ad that's problem aware. So how would you write this ChatGPT? This is a great effective tool to do that and help you develop muscle memory for what these things actually look like. Okay, so I want to give you some examples. I want to make this real for a second. So let's say you're beehiiv, right? What would this look like for beehiiv's advertising for market awareness? If you're unaware, your goal is to call out the symptom. So you might say, have you noticed your reach drop on X? That's a symptom, right? Here's a strategy I learned to guarantee your content reaches 40 to 50% of your audience, right? As opposed to 10 to 20%, right? So that's the difference between email, right? And just putting out content on a platform like LinkedIn or on X. If you're going to move to problem aware, you're calling out the problem. So you probably know growing on X is building on rented land, right? Solution aware is calling out the painkiller. What's the thing that's going to solve their problem? Because they already know what the problem is. They're just looking for the pill, right? So this is like creators. This platform will help you instantly monetize your audience, even if you have no product or service. That's the Beehiiv ad network. And so these are effective. And whether or not you're thinking about them as you're doing them, you are doing them implicitly, whether you decide to or not. So here's an example. Tyler and the Beehiiv team just ran a pretty, I think what we'll get on in history is a pretty famous campaign of bringing new users to their platform. And Tyler's tweet is a product in a fully aware tweet, right? He says, does your newsletter platform ship slower than LA traffic? If it does, by the way, here's 30% off if you want to move to our ESP. And this stuff works. This is from his newsletter. They added over almost $200,000 of sales pipeline, dozens of mentions in media publications, 250,000 impressions on the first day of the campaign. So this stuff works, right? Even if Tyler's not thinking about it in this way, right? This implicitly, he's just a very good copywriter. He's doing this. I won't go through this whole example. Again, e-commerce is one of the most competitive niches. And so I always recommend looking at great companies there because e-commerce is hard. So this is Rise. Again, this example will be in the deck for folks who stay to the end. This is another good one to look at from another industry. Okay, let's keep going. 12:30. All right, so we're doing about 10 more minutes or so, and then 10-15 more minutes, then we'll open up to questions. Now we've added this to our toolkit. We got our dream outcome, we got our problem, and we just unlocked our awareness level, solution aware for this particular ad. Up next, we're going to do the hook, and then we'll do the body. Quick thing about hooks. There's not one type of hook. There are actually three types of hooks. There's your stated hook, which is the thing you say. There's the visual hook, which is what the user sees in the first frame. And there's the audio hook, which is generally some type of sound bite, but more often than not, it's a type of music that people use. And so you can just see here, I don't know if the sound will come through, but if not, that's okay. The stated hook is what this woman's saying, right? She's saying, hey, AI tools sound overwhelming at first. Here's one we did for Big Desk Energy, Tyler's newsletter.
There's no sound, unfortunately.
That's okay. It's all right. This music on the audio side, there's a track that we love called Echo Sax. It's actually, I have it on my Spotify. It's just such a good song. I just listened to it. It's a really good hook for ads on this right-hand side. In this one, you don't need the sound to see this. This is just me walking out from a plant in my apartment. And that's a nice visual hook. Loose slides here. So I want to dig into stated hooks really quick, which is the most important one. That's where you're going to spend most of your time. A stated hook should do three things. It's going to call out an audience or a problem. It's going to imply some type of benefit or payoff, and it's going to drive curiosity. And again, one thing I'd recommend, if you just look at the right-hand side here, have a hook library that you source from Instagram, from TikTok, from ad accounts like the ones that we run, from 1440, from other brands, so that you can quickly use these things out of the box, and you don't have to kind of reinvent the wheel every single time. But if we were going to look at doing this in the ad that we were just talking about, we're thinking about all of these things. So again, the hook was if you're, right? That's the audience, which could be second person. It could be you. You could call it a specific audience. So we could have said you are a marketer, you're a salesperson, you're a developer, right? And then we imply some type of benefit or payoff. So delegating research and PowerPoint to AI at work. So here, the actual implied benefit is it's almost pain avoidance. You're messing something up, and if you keep listening, you're not going to mess that thing up anymore. And that's the curiosity, right? It's if I'm not doing this thing, if I'm not delegating, well, what happens? I don't know. And so here is the visual hook for that, which you can do. I did with the plant, I think, right? Another video. This one is just a TikTok comment, right? So again, we're thinking of multiple elements here as we do this. Okay, so we've got our hook now. If you're not delegating research and PowerPoint to AI at work, now we got to write the body copy, and then we'll have our full high-performing ad. This is my favorite slide, and I didn't really even make it. This is from Alex Ramosi. Body copy should demonstrate value. That's the goal of your body copy. What is value? This is probably one of my favorite frameworks of all time. I used to be a consultant at BCG, which is one of these fancy consulting firms. We think in frameworks all day. I've seen so many frameworks. Out of all the frameworks I've seen, I think this is probably my favorite. Value is, so there is a reason, right, why, for instance, Arnold Schwarzenegger can give away a $0 lead magnet on what diet to have, what workouts to do in order to lose weight, but people still pay $20,000 for a liposuction, right? That's a crazy world where both of those things can still exist. So I'm going to walk through that for a second. Value is your dream outcome. It's the vacation. It's the thing you're trying to get to, right? You're trying to look better. You're trying to be perceived better by other people. Generally, it's something related to status, right? Even making more money at the end of the day, generally is you buy more things, you can raise your status amongst people who know you, right? Generally, it's some type of status. And The top part of this equation, right, is that, and then the perceived likelihood of achieving the thing that you're talking about. And how does likelihood go up? You could have social proof, right? Other people have done this who look just like you, stuff like that. On the bottom of this equation, the things that drag down the value of what you're offering are time delay. Do I have to wait a long time to get the thing that you're promising? Or effort and sacrifice. Do I have to stop doing things that I love, right? Do I have to stop having the candy if I'm trying to lose weight, or stop having as many carbs if I'm trying to put on muscle, or starting to do things that are hard? I got to go to the gym. I got to start cooking, right? That's value. And so your goal here is to raise the top part of this equation and make the bottom part of the equation as low as possible. The reason why, even though Arnold Schwarzenegger can put something out into the world that is free, and you don't have every single person taking that and using that to achieve a better level of fitness, is because the top part is really high, right? Losing weight, looking amazing, fantastic. The likelihood of the achievement, look, I believe Arnold, that's, I think, as best social proof as you could possibly get. The issue is that the time delay is pretty big. It's going to take you 6 to 9 months to do that thing. And you got to start doing a bunch of stuff you don't want to do, and you got to do a lot of sacrifice. With liposuction, you just walk into a doctor's office. There's money involved, right? That's part of it. But you get the outcome you want. It's much faster. So the cost of the bottom part of the equation is almost zero in that case. And that's why these two things exist in the same market of trying to lose weight. That's why these things exist. Okay. So how do you bring that to copywriting? This, just so you know, and I'll again leave this in the deck, there are different levers you can pull underneath each part of this equation. So under number 2, right, I talked about social proof. That'd be like case studies or testimonials, right? And this is why you see like a great example on beehiiv's site, right? If you were to look at the call to action to sign up, immediately underneath that are like a super high review, 4.8 or 9 or something, among thousands and thousands of people that have used the product, right? No matter who you are, whether you're a creator or you're a business owner, or if you're a journalist, right? There's somebody who has used beehiiv effectively. And so you're more likely then to feel like it will work for you if it's worked for other people who are like you. I'll leave this in here for folks to use. This as well is just specific examples of all of these in a weight loss context. I just had ChatGPT generate these ones just for sort of efficacy and speed, but you could have it help you on any of these things, just so you get the idea of what does this actually look like if I'm trying to write in the context of using one of these tactics. Okay, we're going back to body copy for this ad that was a winner. Your goal is to use a couple of these copywriting tactics in a single piece of copy. This is that same ad, the one that won for the neuron. You can see that we're using social proof here on the right-hand side 2 times. We say there's 150,000 people. So this ad ran quite a while ago. It's still running. And they're from Microsoft, Apple, and Salesforce. Great. Big social proof, right? Known tech companies, their leaders, their employees read this newsletter. You can offer multiple outcomes. So that's one of the tactics under one of these levers. You get multiple dream outcomes. So you can stay up to date on AI, right? Which is more of like a, hey, I have news now. I can talk about it at work. I seem smarter, right? And new tools. So that's more like utility or efficacy, right? I can actually maybe use things that will be good for me in my job. And then you make it easy to start at the bottom, right? Sign up for free, like free. And that's the type of ad that works. You can add even more of these. So this is an ad for the Rundown, which is also an AI newsletter. You can see we've down on the right side here, it's simplifying the process, right? So we're making it step by step. Sign up for the Rundown, you'll get these things, and then sign up for their AI University, you'll get more stuff. We define specificity, so applying some number to the outcome. You get 100 real-world AI use cases. We make it done for you, right? So in your lap, we give you, without needing to do any work, a bunch of ways that you can use AI in your jobs, for marketing, for agencies, right? Name your industry. Pretty much Rowan has thought of or covered a ton of different use cases in there. We accelerate the results, right? You get access to the university today. You get access right now. And then again, we come back to social proof, 600,000 people reading the newsletter. Okay, so that's how we came up with the body. That's that. All right, I want to, what do we got? Do another 7 minutes or so. Under the design bucket, I want to walk you through the most common formats that we see working on Meta right now, and some of the most common ones that we're using for our clients right now. I'm going to talk about how to design really great ads. Design is really important. I think of it this way. Your copywriting is like the fuel for your ad. Your design is the vehicle. So you can be an amazing copywriter, right? But you don't want to put rocket fuel in a Honda CR-V. The thing's going to blow up. It's going to be on fire, even though the fuel was really expensive. The fuel was really good. So you want to put your stuff in a good vehicle. These are the most common winning ad formats that we see. I'm going to walk through a visual format of this in just a second. Screenshot this. I would grab the deck afterward. These are all different types of ads that we really like. So I'll walk through just a couple different examples. We'll breeze through these. There are sticky note ads. You guys won't be able to hear the sound, but basically it's an 11 Labs voiceover. And this is actually for Tyler sharing his seat deck for beehiiv. We walk through all this stuff, right? There's text over video, which works probably better in newsletters than any other niche that I've seen. I've never understood why. I think it's because people who read newsletters generally are more apt to read in general. And so you can get away with having easy B-roll behind you as long as the copywriting is really good. So this is for a buddy of mine, a mentor of mine, Jesse Pujji, who's been an awesome entrepreneur, and he has a newsletter where you can learn more about bootstrap businesses. Listicles, same thing. This ad has performed really well for Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's an extremely long, copy-heavy ad. But we actually got this idea from some of the ads that were working well for AI newsletters 6 months ago, which are big ChatGPT guides, like giant maps of all the tools you should be thinking about. Like that same framework, that same principle has now found its way into a winning ad in fitness in a completely different niche. That's why you should be paying attention to other ads that are out there, even if they're not necessarily in the niche. Okay. Voiceover ads. So this is like having B-roll and then an 11 Labs or an actor voice over multiple different shots of B-roll. You'll see this a lot with Sahil Bloom, for James Clear. A lot of personal brands will use this. Tweet style ads. There's Tyler. Lead magnets. So we did a nice kind of high fidelity mock-up, the beehiiv seed deck for folks who joined that newsletter. Notes ads. These just, you can literally write these in your phone. And again, we've seen drastic performance differences using notes ads in the copywriting. So again, it still comes back to the copywriting principles. Pen and paper ads, Reddit ads, testimonials, testimonial mashups. So if you have people who can submit videos of what they love about your newsletter, we can mash those up. That's more common in e-commerce. For Arnold, it happens to work because there's a lot of people that are using his programs. I call these like features. So just Morning Brew uses this a lot. I think I've seen some of the more B2B newsletters use this. It's just pointing to a phone with either your app or your newsletter on it, calling out a bunch of outcomes or benefits of reading the newsletter. So those are some of the things that we use. Super quick, if you're trying to book high-performing creatives for UGC, definitely have a creator template you can send people so they know how to film. We recommend booking people on Instance, on Fiverr. You want to think about a creator who looks like the audience your ad concept is calling out. So this one that you're looking at right here in the template happens to be for a stock trading newsletter. And so we purposely wanted somebody who's a little younger. And I think we had some ads with him in a black t-shirt and kind of a watch, right? Because that's the kind of person that somebody who's reading that newsletter is watching. We'll send this out, by the way. So again, this has a link to the template. If you get the deck, then you have this template that we use in our own team. We'll just give that to you. How do you become excellent at high converting UGC? This is a unusual recommendation, but I believe in it very strongly. If you're trying to get good at something, you should do the thing. We're very good at UGC ads. I personally have been in a lot of them, like on purpose. I'm not in all of them, but if I fit the ICP, I'll be in them. And you just keep pushing that repetition over and over. It will make you a better operator, even once you're not in the ads. I know almost intuitively now, whether it's a copywriter or one of my growth marketers submits something to me, like I have a feeling for like how the UGC should go. And it's because I've just done so much of it myself at this point. It's very hard to recreate this as an advantage. I think every newsletter founder should be trying this. All right, last part. Do this in 3 minutes and then we're going to open up to questions. Launching, campaign testing structure. So look, one of the biggest mistakes that newsletter companies make, even ones that are doing millions of dollars or tens of millions of dollars a year, is that they think that signups equal quality. This is probably one of the only industries I've seen that still, it's changing a little bit, that is optimizing to events that do not represent quality. So I want to give you a quick example. If you're optimizing to a signup, Facebook is going to look for more people who sign up to newsletters. That does not necessarily mean those people are going to, if you're ad monetized, go and click sponsorships or purchase from you. Facebook will optimize to the event you're giving it. And it has no idea, as long as people are signing up, it's trying to look for the lowest cost sign up, what the quality or the LTV, what the value of that user is on the other side. So the equivalent of this, if you were running an e-commerce business, would be you go to your founder and you're super excited. I've got the lowest ad per carts in our Shopify store from our meta ads that I've ever seen. We have so many people adding a cart, right? How that would be weird, right? Like your co-founder would go to you and say, what do you mean add to cart? Where's the revenue in add to cart, right? We want people to purchase. That's the equivalent of optimizing to signups. Now, you can't always optimize to signups because sometimes that's a technical limitation of your ESP. That's going to start changing. There's ways to kind of get around that. So I want to talk to you about 2 ways to structure your Facebook ads. If you have the ability to optimize to, let's say, a user who opens or a user who clicks, versus if you're still optimizing to signups where you need to have a little bit more manual control. We're going to talk about both of those things really quickly, and then we'll open up to Q&A. So the major difference if you're optimizing to quality, which is the left-hand side, versus optimizing to signups, which is the right-hand side, is whether you in Meta have your budgets automatically allocate across ads or whether you choose the budget for your various ad sets or for your ads. The reason for that is if you can't trust Facebook because it's not getting the right data to optimize to users who are quality, you cannot let it allocate your budget across ads. It's not going to know which ads truly have the highest LTV for you. So you need to manually control those things. If you do optimize to quality, you're a little bit safer. In either case, we strongly recommend at the very bottom here, broad targeting, that's letting Facebook do the targeting, 1 ad set per ad concept, 3 to 4 ads per concept, dynamic creative testing on, we don't have time to dive into all these things, but we'll do more of this, and measuring, especially if you're doing a manual allocation of budget, measuring your newsletter click-through rate tied to each concept versus your cost per lead. One of the reasons why we like working with beehiiv is that their subscriber reports will automatically pull out open rate and click rate by ad concept that we're running. And so it makes it very easy for us to understand, even in cases where we have to optimize to signups versus clicks, which ads are performing and which are not. That visibility is extremely important. Otherwise, you're flying blind. Super quickly, campaign structure. This is how we recommend setting things up. We recommend having a flagship campaign, and then you have kind of your champion or your winning ad set, and you have a bunch of ad sets that are trying to challenge that. And we recommend, again, doing 1 concept. So what I mean by a concept is it's like the ad that we walked through during this full presentation. You're speaking to 1 dream outcome, 1 problem. You're doing 3 iterations, maybe 4 iterations on that. And generally the only thing you're changing during that is the hook. The hook will drive 80% of the performance of your ad. So you can see right here for Tyler Dank's Big Desk Energy, these are 3 separate ads technically, but in each of them, we're only changing the first sentence. We're only changing the first sentence. Cool. All right, before we move to Q&A, we're going to have more to talk about. I think we're going to do another one of these in a couple of weeks. It's about native CAC. So everything we've talked about today is how do you lower cost per lead and think about quality. What I want to talk about after this, at another point, is monetization. So here's a newsletter we're working with, Bootstrap Giants. We're getting them $1.50 in revenue per subscriber in the first 14 days. And we just launched a cohort with them that drove $250,000 in a little under 90 days. And so there's this whole idea of like, how do you monetize your newsletter effectively that we have yet to talk about. All other kinds of stuff, AI tools for ads, sponsorships, landing pages. So we're going to come back to tell EJ you like this, and we'll do more of this. All right, before I leave you, I want to tell you, and we go to Q&A, I want to tell you a quick story about a media company that is doing $1 million per employee. Their monetization is so strong that their company looks like a software company, right, versus a media company. That company, it's 1440. So they're one of the fastest growing media company brands in the country, driven by paid social. That's their head of growth, Erica. She's won a ton of awards. They just hit 4 million email subscribers. They're spending millions and millions of dollars every year on ads. And they have what I consider to be best-in-class open rates, best-in-class sponsor click-through rates. Their account is an incredible one to look at. I think they have probably one of the best creative teams in the game. I think everybody should be studying what they do. And I want to give you something that I think will be helpful. If you liked this format, if you like this and the exercise that we went through, which was unpacking the dream outcome for the neuron into each of those problems, what I've done, we spent like probably 10 hours on this. I looked through every ad that 1440 has ever done in their history. I picked out the 40 longest running ads that they've ever made. And I'm doing a breakdown just on LinkedIn. You can just see it of exactly the dream outcomes, all the problems, 3 dream outcomes, 12 problems they focus on, and every ad, every hook that's sitting under that. So if you want that, you just head over to my LinkedIn. You can do this link. You can scan this QR code, throw me a follow, turn on your notifications. I'm going to be posting that tomorrow at 9 a.m. Roughly, like I think 2 or 3 minutes ago, someone from my team just posted this deck on LinkedIn as well. If you just go to that post, you can go and download this deck and you'll be all set there too. Awesome. All right, let's do Q&A.
For sure. Yeah, keep that up there. I can go through the questions. Cool. Can you share some other examples of social proof for a newsletter that can't boast subscriber numbers yet?
Yeah. So I would say talk about the type of audience. So even if we were starting with the rundown and they had 10 subscribers today, we would talk about either people who are interested in a particular topic. So let's say AI tools or AI workflows for marketers, or I would just call out the audience directly. Join other marketers and salespeople learning more about how to use AI in their job. You call the audience even if you can't call it the number.
Amazing. Love that advice. How important it is for your Facebook business page or IG account to be super active with new content before running ads?
Not important at all. That's one nice thing. Like we've spun up pages. So for instance, like Tyler didn't have a personal page, like a personal business page before we started running ads. We've never posted a single thing on that page. It's just a Facebook page with like his LinkedIn photo on it. And we've had no issues at all.
Amazing. That's great news for, I'm sure, a lot of folks who are just starting out. When do you recommend a newsletter start experimenting with paid traffic? How early is too early?
I think it depends on what your goal is. And I think you maybe have one of three goals. If you're trying to build a business where the newsletter is the business, I think that the fastest way, you need to start with thinking about how you're going to monetize. Is it sponsorships? Are you going to sell a product? And you want to work backward from that. So I've had a couple of newsletters before and they did okay. I sold one to the Milk Road for not a ton of money. But like the number one things I wish I had known were probably three things. I wish I thought about monetization extremely quickly. I wish I'd reached out to, in my case, sponsors 3 months earlier than I did. You don't need to wait for all these things. You just think you need to wait. And the reason that I would have done that is because whether or not the newsletter succeeded or failed, your time is extremely valuable. You just want to get to the answer. Even if the answer is this particular newsletter isn't going to work, you will be so glad you found that out 3 months earlier than you would have otherwise. Even if the thing doesn't work, having paid ads in your tool belt as a skill set, writing content as a skill set are incredibly valuable things, even if you're not trying to have a newsletter business. There are so many agencies. There are so many SaaS companies. I even know a couple of people who are running e-commerce companies that have newsletters that help support that business. So this is actually learning how to create a part of your funnel that will convert people from readers into customers, even if the newsletter itself is not the main part of your business. That's what I'd say to that.
Killer. That's such good sage advice. What's your structure for testing creatives? Do you have a rule? How many ads in one ad set? How many copies? When do you decide to turn them off, etc.?
Yeah, generally we'll do it like this. We'll have this campaign, champion ad set, challenger ad set 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Every ad set has one ad concept in it. So there's 3 iterations on that ad. And so this is a little more technical if you haven't stepped into meta before. You've basically got campaigns, you've got ad sets, and you've got ads, right? So you've got one campaign, winner ad set, multiple other test ad sets. And then if you were to dig in, if you were to unpack each ad set, we have dynamic creative on, which is basically you get to test a bunch of different ads at once. And we'll run 3 or 4 versions of a single concept within that. And within those versions, we're generally only changing either the hook or if it's some text on a graphic or like B-roll, we'll switch the graphic out, but keep the hook the same.
Incredible. I think, Tony, just as we're talking through this, can we save these questions so that, I guess we have them saved because they're in the form, right? These would be great things to make some content around, and we'll share the questions with you as well, Nathan, if you want to create like blog posts or content around it. These are solid gold for that. Could you repeat? So this is somebody wanting to like kind of recover something. Could you repeat what you were optimizing for with your campaigns? Do you ever optimize higher up the funnel, or is it always trying to get as close to those engagement, high quality events as possible?
Assuming it's not, a technical limitation, it is ideal to try to go as low down the funnel as you can. So let me give you both of these things taken to their logical extreme. You could optimize for people who just view your landing page, right? But you just get a bunch of people who view, who don't sign up. On the other end, you could optimize to a user, assuming no technical limitations, who has clicked a sponsorship and purchased something. That's if you're Red Ventures, if you're the points guy, like those people try to optimize their ads to people who open up Chase cards, Amex cards. The trade-off you're always making as you optimize down funnel is those events are more expensive to get. So you need to be spending more in order to have enough event volume for Facebook to properly optimize. And if you're not spending that much, it's going to take you either a ton of time to figure out if those ads work at all, or you're never going to find out. And so what I'm kind of proposing is a happy medium, which is either optimize for the sign up and then manually control the budget that is allocated to your ad sets while you're in beehiiv actually looking at the quality of those readers in the subscriber report, or optimize and let Facebook set the ads automatically to opens or to clicks. Those, I think, are a good balance of having to spend a lot and sort of the speed of the data that you're going to get back, the efficacy of the data you're going to get back.
Amazing. That is great feedback. Cool. We'll include resources when we post this recording on the site, but just real quick so we can make this easy for the audience as well as our editors. What additional resources do you recommend for mastering paid ads, whether they're educational tools, websites to help you kind of, what are like the top ones that just immediately pop into your head as being indispensable?
Yeah, I would say the best ways to learn are by doing. Newsletter ads are one of the nicest ways to learn paid ads because you can spend $30, $20 to $50 a day, and the events are relatively cheap, right? If you're in e-commerce, you're paying 20, 30, 40, 50 bucks to see a purchase come through. That's a lot different from $2 for a newsletter ad. And so the speed at which you get reps increases a lot. And so I would look at other people's ad accounts. I would do copy work. So if any of you guys know Sam Parr, his recommendation is find a page of copy, find an ad you like, and literally write out that thing by hand. And that's the best thing you could probably do without spending money. But the best thing you can do to learn ads is to run ads. If I was going to give you a YouTube channel, I would go look at Nick Theriot, Theriot on YouTube. He does a great job of, one, philosophically what I believe, which is letting Facebook take the reins on allocating budget and optimizing and targeting. And he's very thoughtful he has some videos about how he sets up his campaigns, which are relatively similar to how we do it.
Amazing. Those are great. We'll make sure to include those links when we publish the post. How does your strategy for a niche B2B newsletter differ from a more general B2C newsletter?
I think your strategy for reader acquisition probably depends a little bit on B2C versus B2B. It's going to be a lot on your monetization model. For example, I have a newsletter it's a private newsletter for people who are doing 6, 7, 8 figures with their newsletters. And because it's specifically for that audience, it's extremely niche. I don't run paid ads at all for it. If I did, I would have a form probably to heavily qualify people. What we actually do is we'll reach out and we'll invite people. So like we invited Tyler, Sean Griffey, who founded Industry Dive, is on that. So that's where you're like hyper niche. And actually Industry Dive, Sean Griffey's company, which sold for $500 million, is a great example of that taken to its extreme. They did a lot of trade shows. They did a lot of things that weren't necessarily paid ads, but it's because they're so niche in B2B. Just to give you a sense of this, they were doing about $40 per year per reader in revenue, which is crazy. 1440, which is one of the best in class newsletters. They're B2C, but still does about $5 per reader per year, right? So there's that world where you're super niche. But I think for most people, ads are the best way to go if you're trying to find out something fast, if it's going to work. And if you're trying to scale, organic can also work for you really well, but you're paying with money either way to gain newsletter subscribers. You're either just paying with your time or you're paying dollars into Facebook.
Incredible. Let's see. Benchmarks. Let's go do this one. What conversion rate to subscriber should we expect for people who click on a Facebook ad? Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Basically, what is the conversion rate from ad click or ad visit to conversion from an ad on Facebook? Should have just read the second half of this. Sorry. This is structured really weird. Okay. What percentage of clicks from an ad should result in a newsletter sign up? That's easy to say.
Yeah, I'll give you the full funnel benchmarks. So let's say you're not in a super niche. So these are going to be rules on average, right? Rules of thumb. A $15 to a $20 CPM, right? I'm being very specific here. A unique outbound click-through rate. That's a specific metric that you can find in Facebook. That's the one you want to look at. That is most certainly above 1.5%. You want to be above 2%. If you're really good, you can get 3, 4, 5%. We've had ads that have gotten like 6 or 7%. And then to answer your question the most directly, when somebody lands on your newsletter page, you want to have a 40% plus conversion rate. If the exception being like, if you're trying to, like, let's say you run a B2B services business or an agency, we're trying to qualify people and bring them on sales calls, where you don't want to fill up your calendar with anyone who would book a call with you. You want to see how much you're making. Are you in my niche? And there you may actually want to add a form to make it actually harder. You want to add friction in order for someone to be able to subscribe, in which case that number could go lower. So these are just averages that depend on your situation.
What do you have a range? And I know the ones that we do, and you're free to share the ones that we do with the Creator Spotlight
above 40%.
ones.
Yeah, above 40%. That's what we look for.
What would you say the bare minimum ad spend that you would want to allocate for meta testing would be?
Yeah, so if you're aiming for a $2 CPL typically what Meta needs to optimize are 50 conversions per ad set per week. So like 50 signups, 50 purchases, right? This works for any industry, right? You just have to map it back to your industry. And so what that looks like is if you hit a $2 cost per lead, you need 50 of those conversions per ad set per week, right? Use $100 per ad set per week might be the goal. When I first started running like my newsletters or a lot of newsletters that I see starting out, you can get by spending 25, $30 a day and just start testing and seeing what quality looks like on the other side.
Got it. Makes sense. Cool. We're coming down to the final stretch. Should we not mess with detailed targeting at all? Just let Advantage Plus audience do its thing? Or is there kind of any exceptions to that rule?
That would be my recommendation. Yes, use Advantage Plus targeting. This is what works for us. It works for a lot of agency people. And I think that's honestly where Facebook is going, right? Again, their incentive is to make it as easy as possible to use the platform. So what that means is like media buying over time is going to become a commodity. The valuable skill is copywriting, design, market research. I'd say no matter what, pick the philosophy that you believe and stick to it. Most people change, right? They change the way they think. So whether it's you listen to me or somebody else, just pick one thing and then only operate in that framework. That's the best way to go about it.
Amazing. Cool. We are coming down. How long should you run a test before killing an idea? What are the benchmarks or kind of heuristics that you're going to look for?
Yeah, usually newsletters, like you can spend enough where you're getting a read on an ad within the first 3 or 4 days. And typically I'm looking for 2 things. Number one, is the CPL at or below what the other ads are at? Is the quality at or above what the other ads are at? So I guess I'm looking for 3 things. And then the third thing, is this ad scaling? Is it taking 15, 20, 30, 40% of the overall spend in the ad account, or can it if I'm manually pushing up the budget? And so the way that an ad can lose is the CPL too high? Is the quality too low? Or even if those things look fantastic, but the ad can't really scale, then still technically ad is a loser, and over time we'll turn it off.
Amazing. Great feedback. And then our last question here, we got another one that came in. How often should we be making new ads and testing them? How do you prioritize testing new ads versus funneling more spend into winners? What is the balance that you would try to strike there?
Yeah, so most people don't do this. More people should be doing this. If you find a winning ad, do more of that thing. And generally what that looks like, it's not like iterating on your winning ad, like changing the hook or switching out the actor. If it's UGC, those are the most common things that you do as iterations, is going to decrease your CPL by 30%. It will just allow you to spend more. It will increase the longevity of those ads overall. And so generally when we found a winner, we're trying to do 30 to 50% of our volume, our creative volume around that winner, around those winners.
Perfect. All right, now we're getting to the last one. How do you deal with Facebook automatically flagging ads without a clear reason why, and how do you appeal those?
Yeah, so you can appeal automatically manually through the platform. It's tough to know without the ads you're trying to run. Typically where people get dinged on ads is you're over promising, right? You can't promise unbelievable results. So if I went in and we ran an ad for the rundown that was like, make $100,000 a year in 3 months using our AI tools, like that's promising too heavy of an outcome. Facebook's going to ding that ad. So I would relook at what you're promising in the ads. I try to make that lighter or softer versus what you're doing.
That brings us to the conclusion of all the questions in our Q&A. So we are good to go. Where can folks find you online? How can they take it? I guess you already have the scan there. Perfect.
Right here.
You already covered it right there. You jumped ahead of my spiel, but yeah, I thank you so much for coming to join us today and sharing such critical, incredible knowledge with our audience. But yeah, highly recommend Nathan. If you guys are at the point, if anybody's in the audience who's at the point of ready to scale their ads, certainly recommend reaching out to the Feed Media. They've got a great team over there that can help you out. Obviously, if you're maybe a little bit earlier on or you want to try your hand at it, this is a great starting point. And we look forward to having you back. I think tentatively, we're looking at December 5th. Can you give people a little preview about what's going to be involved in that one? And it's not ready to register yet, so you guys can keep an eye on beehiiv.com/webinars. And when that's up and ready, we will share it there. But can you give us a little preview, a little teaser trailer for what they can expect from our next webinar with you?
Yeah, if you think about the progression of these, what we just talked about was like the cost side of this framework. How do you decrease your cost while still having high quality? we need to talk about monetization. And so we'll probably at some point bring in Walter, who did Sean Purry's ads for the Mocha. We talked about the sponsorship side, but the very next one we're going to talk about is how you can use low ticket products, other things to basically try to get as close to possible to negative CAC, negative CPL as soon as possible as you can. We've done that for some newsletters, and we'll talk about how we've done that for newsletters.
Incredible. Amazing. We look forward to deepening the relationship. We have a couple resources that we're partnering with you on to offer to beehiiv folks that'll be launching soon. So keep an eye out. We'll make an announcement around those different resources. I think the one that we have that's just about ready to launch, and when my designer gets back with the images for the page, is going to be your top performing newsletter ads of 2024. You want to give folks a little preview about that as well, and we'll announce that through an email when that one goes live.
Yeah, the top performing newsletter ads of 2024. Take them, download them. They're all frameworks for copy that we see perform fairly well. And so they're meant to be useful for any kind of newsletter. So plug in your type of audience, plug in the problems or the dream outcomes, all the things, all the principles we're talking about here. And we think those will have a good shot at performing for you.
Amazing. And actually, in fact, we already have the link to that. So we won't wait for the lead magnet to get launched when we do the recording. We'll just include the link to it in the recording, so they'll know how to find it and they won't have to do any extra work or wait. Thank you so much, Nathan. Really appreciate your time here today. You're a master, and really appreciate all the hard work you do with beehiiv and helping this community grow. Thank you, everybody in the audience, for joining us today for a little bit more than an hour of your time. It's so valuable, I know, and I appreciate it. I know Nathan appreciates it. On behalf of the whole beehiiv team, we appreciate it. If this was really useful, I usually have a slide for this, but I'll just do it verbally. If you are a beehiiv user on a free plan, or if you are on a different platform and you decide to join us today, if this was helpful, one of the things we recommend is our Hive community. This is a Slack community made up of paying beehiiv customers. It's more than 3,000 active beehiiv customers. I'd say dozens or hundreds of messages a day. We have to think of a dozen different channels, from things like, how do I do this? I'm testing out this certain strategy. Help me refine it. Things like cross promotions. Hey, I'm doing a recommendation. Who wants to partner with me? Feature feedback and feature requests. It's basically kind of where the insiders gather to, basically, who are serious about growth, gather to really refine their ideas and refine their newsletters. If this was helpful, the beehiiv community has this type of advice day in and day out, and definitely recommend upgrading to your beehiiv account to get access to that if you haven't already. If you are a paying beehiiv member and you haven't gotten that invite, it should be sent automatically when you upgrade, but you can reach me at ej@beehiiv.com, and I'll forward the message to our community manager, and we will make sure that you are re-provisioned an invite. We want as many people in there as possible. It's one of the most value-packed resources that we offer here at beehiiv. So thank you so much again for your time. Really appreciate you sticking with us. We had 80% of us stick through even to this point right now, which is incredible. Have a great day, everyone. Really appreciate you. Look forward to connecting wherever you find us, whether it's Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever. Have a great day.